Education meeting is now called to order. If you choose to do so, please join me in a moment of silent prayer. Thank you.
Now I ask everyone to stand for the pledge of allegiance. Salute and pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have before you the agenda for today's board meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is approved. At this time, this is our recognition part of the agenda. Dr. Dodson?
Thank you. If you haven't noticed, we have a room full of thespians in the house. I'd like to introduce you Ms. Nancy Malone and Mr. St. John from Spain Park High School. Nancy's from Hoover High School. These are our two theater directors. Nancy leads the program at Hoover High School. Michael leads the program at Spain Park. Fantastic theater programs, and they have just gotten back from the Walter Trumbauer Theater Festival, which is a long-standing competition in the state of Alabama. I believe it started before World War II. Been going ever since, and there are, I was counting 30 individual and group categories, and students from either Spain Park or Hoover High placed in over half of those individual and group events at the state competition this year. So they've done an outstanding job. They do an outstanding job every year. And so we just recognize you for that outstanding performance. And I wanted you to speak up and share some of the specifics about your kids. So Michael, there's Spain Park. And Nancy, there's Hoover High. So thank you both for leading these wonderful programs, shepherding these kids in the arts. And tell us a little bit more about your charges.
Can they come down?
Please, come on. Come on back.
Are they playing themselves? Or
With this latest competition, both Spain Park and Hoover were in the top 5 one-act plays, so we were really excited about that. In terms of things at Hoover, some individual events that happened. We have first place in dramatic scenes, right here. We have a first place in male dramatic monologue. Best supporting actress for the play Antigone is right here. Antigone is best actress. We have all-star cast. We have all-star cast right here as well. Pantomime was first place. First place. This is the second in classical dramatic. So there were a whole lot of individual events that these kids were just fantastic on. I've never seen a group of folks that work harder. And so I'm so very proud of such a great group. So, Hoover, thanks.
Good job.
Spain Park finished with the one act in first place this year in the state. It's the third time for the past 3 years that Spain Park has been asked to represent the state of Alabama at the next step, the Southeastern Theater Conference. So we feel very honored to represent the state. We'll be going to Chattanooga in March to perform our play one more time to compete against 9 other states from our region. Spain Park I've been very lucky, you guys. I have fantastic students. This is my 4th year at Spain Park High School. 3 out of the 4 years that I've been there, they've won the state competition. I'm so fortunate to work with these kids. Spain Park has been open, I believe, 14 years, and out of those 14 years, they have come in first or second in the state 7 of those 14 years. So I walked into a wonderful program, and I hope to continue it. We have some fantastic young performing artists in this community, and we thank you for your vote of confidence in us and for your support.
Parents, thank you for sharing your children with us in this great honor. And kids, just have a great rest of your year. And for those of you who are going on, good luck with the competition.
Hey Ron, is this like the down-home version of the Golden Globe?
I would think that's a perfect analogy.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We lose half of our audience.
Maybe next time they can come in costume.
You have the minutes from the regular board meeting of December 6, 2014, and the called board meeting of December 19, 2014. Do I have a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. At this time, we are delighted to approve Dr. Reese's contract, so he can continue to sit at the table up here with us. Gentlemen, y'all have received his contract ahead of time. Any questions, concerns?
The contract embodies the terms that Mr. Cooper outlined for the board at the last meeting, and Mr. Reese reviewed it very carefully. Kathy Ante has had input concerning the compliance with teacher retirement, and we're delighted that this agreement has been reached and hope that it will be favorably received by the board tonight.
No questions or comments. Do I have a motion to approve Dr. Reese's contract?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The contract is approved. Congratulations, Dr. Reese. Next is the personnel report. Any questions for Ms. Field?
Hey, Mary, on page 3, item 5 and 6, does one supersede the other?
One is for the end of this year, and then she went ahead and made the request for next year. Sometimes they'll do it simultaneously. To replace it.
Did everyone get a copy of the revised personnel report that was handed to us just a few minutes ago? Mr. Kelly?
I did, I'm sorry.
There's no more questions. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel report?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The personnel report is approved. Next, you have the business items in front of you. Any questions for Ms. Ante? If not, do I have a motion to approve the business actions?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The business actions are approved. You now must consider a proposed textbook committee recommendation. Any questions for Dr. Adams? If not, do I have a motion to approve the committee members?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The textbook committee recommendation is approved. We now have before us a special education services contract. Any questions for Dr. Mayer? Is she in here? Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Mayer, did you want to elaborate on this contract at all, or anything that we need to know?
No, not unless you have specific questions.
Okay. Any questions? If not, do I have a motion to approve this contract?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The special education services contract is approved. Okay, the last item under action items, the tower lease agreement. We are going to table that at this board meeting. Mr. Sweeney, do I need a vote on that? Or is that just a recommendation from the president?
Since it's on your agenda, I think you should have a motion to table it.
Okay. Under action items, letter G, the tower lease agreement. Do I have a motion to table this line item?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The tower lease agreement is tabled at this time.
Madam President, may I speak on that just 1 second?
Absolutely.
Talking to Mr. Westover, one of our engineers for the city, this is a very good thing. This is a communication venture to help our city services, so there's nothing of a concern of ours, other than we just wanted to see a map of it, so take a look at that. I think it's a very good thing for the city, so.
Okay. Dr. Reese, if you would just give us a little bit more information. Okay. Okay, next, information reports. Dr. Reese, do you have anything for us tonight? You absolutely can. There's a real nice podium if you want to stand back there too.
I did that last time.
Okay.
I just want to thank the people in the school system, the people in the community, the different committees that I have met. I've never received a warmer welcome than I have at Hoover. My wife came with me the first day and looked the office over, and we have eaten our way through Birmingham. And she came back with me yesterday afternoon, and she's already started eating her way through Birmingham tonight, I believe. I hope I can join her tomorrow night. But I can honestly say that the people I have found in the central office and in the schools has just been unbelievable, incredible. And I'm blessed to work with such outstanding people. My goal, I have set 2 goals and I failed on both of them. I wanted to, by the end of last week, I wanted to be able to look at every person who works in this office and to call them by their first name. And there are about 3 that I looked at earlier today, and I didn't have time to go around, but I have got to do that tomorrow. And my other goal was to get around to visiting all the 17 schools, and I have visited 12, and I have 5 more to go. And I'm going to blame it on the weather delay. But I'm going to try to do better, but it's just been a wonderful experience so far, and I thank the board, again, for giving me this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you, look forward to working with the people in the school system and the people in the community, and especially the parents and the students. I got to visit with some students this week, and if you're an educator, no offense to the employees, but seeing those students, that's rewarding. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Well, the highest compliment I can pay you, you've only been here for a short period of time, but everybody wants to keep you permanently. Susan?
I only have one question, Madam President.
Yes.
To Mrs. Green, I know it's about that time for the 2015-16 calendar election.
Yes,
Can we
everybody's anxious.
have some discussion about that?
Certainly. Normally, we present the calendar at the January meeting, but with the transition, we wanted to be able to have some input from Dr. Reese and to just be sure that we handle this in a little bit more methodical manner. So Dr. Dodson and I have been discussing the parameters. We always go to the calendar committee with, here are our absolutes, and then here's what we have to work with. So that's been done. The calendar committee will convene within the next few days, and then we'll have a calendar draft ready to present to the board at the February 2nd meeting.
Will we handle it like we did last year, Ms. Green, where we put it out on the website and are able to receive comments?
Right, we will. The length of time that is out there is certainly the board's discretion. We respond to every comment from a parent. We bring all that information in back to the committee. So the time frame is just what we have allowable. We are happy to send that draft to the board prior to the meeting if we may do that, Mr. Sweeney. So let them look at that so that you can have questions ready if you'd like. And we want it to be as open as possible. We're excited that Memorial Day falls a little bit later. That's been the big deal.
When does it need to be approved by the board?
I would like to see it approved at the March meeting at the latest so that our parents have time to plan.
Okay.
They're anxious and calling, trying to make their long-term plans, and our parents are very conscientious. They want their kids in school when we're having school, so they're trying to work around that. And of course, the biggest question is, will we have a whole week of Thanksgiving again? To which I am cautiously saying yes.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Is there any other new business? Anyone from the board? If not, is Susan Salter? Yes. Okay, this is Susan Salter, Director of Leadership Development of the Alabama Association of School Boards. And she is here to make a presentation. I'd ask her to come to the board meeting tonight to make a presentation to the 5 board members.
Just a minute to get everything together for you.
I appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys this evening. It's always an opportunity to come. Sorry, is that better? I'm short, but that was high for anybody. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this evening. I think I was last with you for Dr. Craig's evaluation back in the spring, and we are excited about the possibility of working with you on the permanent superintendent search, with apologies to Dr. Reese, and I understand they would love to keep you permanently. AASB's Superintendent Finder Service has been in existence for between 3 and 4 years. Some of the board may know we were in the business for many years. We got out of the business as for-profit firms moved into the state and began to do a number of searches. But in the hiatus of 8 to 10 years when we were not in the business, we found that it left a gap in our ability to serve members and in what our members looked to us. All right, the microphone probably giving them trouble. And in what our members looked to us to be able to provide to them. Our goal in creating Superintendent Finder truly was to provide you guys with the expertise, the convenience, and the resources to be able to make one of the most crucial decisions that you will be making as board members and to make the process flow smoothly without, frankly, you having to invest huge amounts of money in order to find a new leader. We work very hard to ensure that the board is in control of the decision-making process. You are, at the end of the day, members of our association. And while there is a contract, if you choose to hire us, you're still members of the association. And we will work very hard to ensure that this process goes as each of you hopes it will, and to keep the board in charge of the major decisions. The primary thing that we bring to the table is that we handle the legwork for you. And I'll go through this in some detail, but we handle the application process, the screening process, the recruiting process, so that the board is free to do the things that are, or focus on the things that are clearly critical, choosing the qualifications for your next leader, interviewing the finalists, doing the legwork on your end to be sure that you've got candidates that do reflect the values and the skills that you want in a leader, and then choosing that leader. Those of you who have been through a search before know that it is an extremely labor-intensive job, and our goal is to take some of that burden off of you. In your packet, I've included a printout of a PowerPoint, which I brought with me on a thumb drive, which I apparently have dropped since I stood here, but I'll just go through it here. On the second page of the handout, you will see pictures of our search team, and I'd like to just run through them quickly. Our consultants are a team of former statewide education leaders. 3 or 4 of them are former superintendents who are all highly regarded by the school boards that they worked with and in the education community generally. And the 5th member of our team is former Associate Dean of Education and worked for many years for the State Department of Ed doing superintendent evaluations. So they bring a unique combination of skills to this process and a very deep knowledge of education in Alabama, of the school systems in Alabama, and what it takes to truly lead in a boots-on-the-ground kind of way. Dr. Kendi Behrens, if you select us, Kendi would be your lead searcher, your primary point of contact. She has worked in public education in Alabama for 32 years. She worked for a decade as the superintendent in Florence and was so highly regarded by her board that they hired her to find her own replacement. Dr. Jan Harris recently retired as superintendent of the Coleman City School System, and Jan would also be assisting with this search. She is the newest member of our team, but brings a wealth of knowledge. She was superintendent in Coleman for 8 years and was honored repeatedly during her tenure for her innovation, her commitment to technology. She was named one of the top 10 tech-savvy superintendents in the country by eSchool News. And when she was a principal, she was the state PTA's high school principal of the year. So she's got a long and storied career. Dr. Terry Jenkins is also a key player on our team. Terry is the recently retired superintendent of the Auburn school system. Terry has the what I think is unique distinction of having been state superintendent of the year in 2 different states, in Alabama and in Georgia. We use him frequently as a trainer of school boards on board superintendent relations because he is truly the consummate professional in that area. Hank Jones is the retired superintendent of Troy. Hank has 34 years of education experience, and if there's somebody working in public education as an administrator in Alabama that Hank doesn't know, I'll eat my hat. He has amazing resources and connections. He headed for a number of years the School Superintendents of Alabama's mentoring program, and he also helped them develop their superintendent leadership network. He understands the job of a superintendent well and has deep ties to the education community. And our final team member is Dr. James Wright. He's the member I alluded to earlier that served as the Associate Dean of Education at Auburn's Montgomery campus. He also worked, as I said, for the state's Department of Education in leadership and management, and specifically working with PEPI and superintendent evaluation For a number of years, he's had his own company, doing superintendent evaluations and various consulting, and at the moment is part of the intervention team in Selma, chosen by the State Department to help get that system back on sound footing. So as you can see, they come with great experience, and these are the people, if you were to hire us, that would be leading your search. As I said, Dr. Behrens would be your primary point of contact, but all of them would be involved. I mentioned that we've been back in the business between 3 and 4 years. In that time, we've done 19 searches around the state. Some of the systems that we've searched for include Athens, Auburn, Boaz, Coleman City and Coleman County, Gardendale, Gunnersville, Jefferson County, Lee County, Muscle Shoals, Aniana, and Sylacauga. Most of those in the last year to 18 months. There were older ones, but we anticipate a pretty good number of vacancies this year in Alabama. It's cyclical. Last year there weren't many at all. This year we have already been hired to do 2. We will be searching for Selma and Conecuh County superintendents during the period that your search would be going on. We anticipate at least 6 other vacancies and possibly a couple more than that. It is that season. I am president of the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers, and we refer to this in our group as Superintendent Search Season. It is just that time of year. Most systems are trying to get somebody on board by the July 1, beginning of the traditional education contract year. I will mention that because there are so many searches, whether you hire us or whether you hire another another search firm, it will be important to sell Hoover. I think you're in the catbird seat in that regard. This is a very highly regarded system with an excellent track record. The reputation of this board as being a cohesive unit will serve you well, and I think you'll be well positioned. But that will be something that needs to be part of any search package is promoting this vacancy and promoting all that this system and this community has to offer, in addition, as Dr. Reese said, to the wonderful restaurants and quality of life here. Let me tell you a little bit about the deliverables in our search process. We will, as I mentioned, advertise and recruit for the position. I do want to make clear, when we recruit, we will recruit sitting superintendents in Alabama who have indicated that they are interested in changing positions or that have indicated an interest specifically in this position. However, we do not poach superintendents from other systems unless they tell us they're interested. We will make them all aware of it, make it clear if they are interested to contact us, and then if we feel that any of them are a good fit, we will recruit them hot and heavy. But we make that same commitment to you. If we place a superintendent in your system, you will not find us out 6 months or a year later trying to recruit them in the next search we do. That's not the way we do business. That said, though, we have an extensive database of possible candidates for superintendent positions that we will go through and recruit from. We will use our connections with the national organization I mentioned and with other education groups around the country. We would place several $1,000s worth of advertising in the trade publications, the American Association of School Administrators, the Superintendent's Professional Group, has a job board. That is the traditional place that superintendent applicants will go to find openings. We also place them with TopSchoolJobs.com and Education Week and a variety of other places such as that. But we will, as I said, generate the promotional material, do that recruiting. We will also gather stakeholder input, and what we are proposing, I've put a formal proposal in your packet, but what we are proposing in terms of stakeholder input is a combination of surveys and face-to-face meetings. Let me address the surveys and then I'll come back and talk a little bit about the face-to-face meetings. We are proposing to work with New South Research here in the Birmingham area to conduct scientific, statistically valid surveys. I've spoken with Jim Jager, their president, and he recommends that you do an online survey that is emailed to all employees and that is emailed to all your parents. Then that they do a telephone survey to reach community representatives who don't have that direct affiliation with the school system. He believes that with a sample of 200 community residents, he can get a representative, statistically valid sample. And you may wonder why the combination. He felt like with the online surveys that would reach employees and parents, you've got an audience you can reach directly. You can get responses quickly. You can use skip patterns and other tools to make sure that the results you get are valid and get them quickly, and it allows compilation of a great deal of data and input accurately that we can then bring back to the board. But he also felt like we needed a way to reach non-parents and people for whom you do not have email addresses or who might not have access to the internet to do a survey. In that case, as I said, they would do a telephone survey that again would be conducted by trained professionals. It is the fastest, most effective way to get unbiased information about the questions that you're asking, and we would ensure random representation of your local residents. It also allows for that human contact, which is important to people, the ability to ask some follow-up questions when you do a telephone survey. And of course, everything would be carefully monitored, and if any issues were to crop up in the course of a telephone survey, the professional doing the interview could immediately flag that as something that needed to be brought to our attention and passed on to you. Let me go back now and tell you a little bit about the community engagement meetings. This is something that would be conducted by AASB. We propose to do 6. There would be 2 for the community, 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening, and then between those 2 on the same day would be a meeting to which all system and building level administrators are invited, another one to which all your certified employees are invited, another one to which all your support workers are invited, and then one for your public officials, your legislative delegation, mayor, council, any economic development, anybody that the superintendent would work with in that regard, education foundation. Public officials can be as broad or as narrow a definition as this board wishes. But generally these meetings are open by those groups to all comers who are interested. They are not scientifically valid, but they provide a wonderful opportunity to mine the data further, to ask the follow-up questions about attitudes that are voiced in the course of these meetings. The questions are very similar to what's asked in the survey, but they allow us the opportunity to uncover things or attitudes or issues that we didn't anticipate when the survey was created. And I'll give you an example, not to name names, but we did this in one relatively small system where the board members were pretty confident that they understood, public attitudes about their system. And one of the questions we always ask is, what are the issues that you see on the horizon for this system in the next year to 18 months that the new superintendent's going to need skills to deal with? And in the survey, nothing unusual bubbled up. But in the engagement meetings, we heard all day long in every group over and over that the perception was they had a good old boy system alive and well that was affecting discipline and hiring. It was a shock to the board. They didn't realize that was the perception. With just the survey and just closed-ended options, we wouldn't have uncovered that, and I think the board found that tremendously helpful. As I say, it will not be statistically valid, but it will be a good window into your community. All right, so I've mentioned advertising and recruiting and community input. Then we would take all applications online. We have a online platform that allows us to do that. We would screen the applicants, verify their transcripts. Hasn't happened in a while, but this state, not too many years ago, had a chancellor post-secondary ed whose resume was fabricated, so we were not involved in that search, I'll be clear, but we take great pains to make sure that would never happen in one of our searches. We will work with the candidates before we would screen it down to 5 applicants, 5 finalists, based on criteria set by the board. And before we bring those names in, we would have one more conversation with each of the 5 to ensure that they intend to be committed to this search and pursue it and stay a decade or more if hired. We do that because from time to time you'll see a candidate's name brought forward and then they get cold feet and back out. We try very hard not to let that happen in one of our searches. Once we have delivered the finalists, then our active role steps back. We will provide you with a bank of questions, potential interview questions, which of course you'll want Mr. Sweeney to vet for you. We will then provide you with an interview guide that kind of gives you do's and don'ts and pitfalls to avoid. And then once you have done your interviews, done your own legwork, it might be a site visit to the top 1 or 2 candidate systems. It might simply be bringing people back for another round of interviews, or you may have everything you need at the end of one round of interviews. I've seen all those things happen. But once you have chosen your next superintendent, then if the board is interested, we will come back in the first 90 to 100 days and conduct or facilitate a session where the board and superintendent talk about goals for the coming year, long-term and short-term goals if the board prefers to do it that way, and choose the evaluation timing and instrument. And let me be clear, the board would choose it, we would merely facilitate that discussion. But we have found that when you do that at the outset, then it's much easier for everybody to stay on the timeline to make sure that the evaluation happens annually. I have included in your packet a timeline. You will notice that it is tentative. It's ambitious. We have the first step is usually a one-on-one meeting between the lead consultant and each member of the board, just to give her an opportunity to get to meet each of you. I have worked for AASB for 20 years, and in that time I've seen a lot of superintendencies turn over, and I can tell you, I can count on one hand nearly the number of superintendents who've been let go because of competency issues. It is almost always a communication or a relationship issue. So we work very hard to be sure that we know this board, that we know what you believe you need in a superintendent, and try to make a match, because in a lot of ways this is a marriage, and try to make a match between this board and the candidates, but also between the system and the community and this candidate. Somebody who will reflect your values and priorities, as well as have the technical skills to do the job. As I say, this is an ambitious timeline, conceivably having the survey kick off next week. I have talked, as I said, to Jim Jager, and he thinks he can make that happen if y'all were to be able to make a decision in the next few days. If not, we might bump everything back a week, but it still would have you naming a superintendent before the end of May. Which would allow a candidate to basically give the month of June. If you got a sitting superintendent, it's not uncommon for them to want to give a month's notice and still have somebody in place on July 1. I would recommend we try very hard to keep the decision getting made no later than the end of May, so that you have that time for them to give notice and get moved and get settled in as you're getting ready to kick off your new year. Now, a little bit about cost. Our base fee for a national superintendent search is $12,000. We also pass along to the board about $2,000 worth of advertising costs. We feel like we could do an effective job of advertising it for that amount of money. New South Services would run you right at $7,200 for a total cost for the search of $21,200. That would be a for certain price. It would not be plus expenses. In trying to price our services over the years, we've tried to be cognizant of what the for-profit firms are charging school boards in Alabama, and I will tell you it's all over the road. You have about four for-profit firms that are searching in Alabama. Hazard Young and Atia is one, BWP is one. And right this minute I can't remember the other two, but there are about four. In looking at what they have charged over the years, Hazard Young and Atia charged Birmingham $27,000 back in 2009 for a national search, and charged Dothan more than $20,000 in its last search a handful of years ago. But then they did the Mountain Brook search for $18,500. So it's a little hard to get an apples to apples comparison. BWP charged Baldwin County $30,000 in their 2010 search, and then just a year later charged Decatur $12,000 also for a national search. Obviously there's proprietary information, and I can't tell you that ours is an exact apples to apples comparison. But I believe at 21.2, with 7,200 of that being efforts to get statistically valid, highly reliable data about what your community thinks you should look for in the next superintendent, I think it's a bargain. So with that, I will tell you that, as I said at the outset, you're AASB members. When this process is said and done, we want you to continue to be AASB members. And if you choose us to do this search, I can promise you without any doubt that we will work with you as colleagues and longtime associates, and not as a client that we will then never have anything to do with after the search is over. So, can I answer any questions?
Could you speak on involving the stakeholders and the public? During your interview process, you bring us the 5 finalists. And at that point, it becomes Public Open Meetings Act discussion. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yes, and Donald, jump in. In Alabama, we have one of the more stringent open meetings and open records acts. I have a lot of colleagues who do searches around the country who it is nothing about the search is made public until the board has actually voted and named a superintendent. That is not the case in Alabama. When we collect the applications for you, that data is ours. It belongs to AASB. We are not subject to the Open Meetings Act. But when we bring the finalist packet to you, when we bring it to you, then that information is public at that time. And we would bring you their full packet. We would bring you their application, their transcript, their cover letter, their references, everything that we have collected on them.
Susan, the 5 applicants, is that negotiable?
Yes.
The board wanted 3, if the board wanted 4, and we obviously have not talked about this or discussed this, is
Yes.
that negotiable?
It absolutely is negotiable. Traditional number is 5. I will tell you this, and it's worth doing this on the front end. Y'all need to have some conversation about the number you want. And I'll come back to the number, but I want to go off on a tangent for just a second. When you get to the interview process, some boards come in and they interview 2 or 3 candidates in a night, and then the other 2 or 3 the next night, and they name somebody and they're done. The process we tend to recommend is that you bring candidates in the night before so you can start first thing in the morning, that in sets of 2 or 3, you spend portions of the day with them, just getting to know them, not asking the kind of questions you would ask in an interview, but again, going back to that, is this somebody you can work with kind of thing, and also showing them around your system. And then you do a public interview in the early evening, with room for an audience, and time after the interview. We tend to call it punch and cookie time, but time with some refreshments where your candidate that you've just interviewed can mingle with your community. You can tell an awful lot about a candidate and how they'll fit into your community by watching how they interact with the people who've attended. So you could allot only 2 days to do your interviews. You could follow the process I just outlined, and you had 5 candidates. It'd take 5 days just to get through the interviews. And then we have some systems, including Auburn, who use a much more detailed process, and it tends to take 2 to 3 days each time they do it. Terry Jenkins, when he was interviewed in Auburn, was there almost a week. Told his wife, he says, on the way out of town, they know more about me than my children do. You know, you can go to that length, and when you make it last over 2 or 3 days, it really gives you time for them to get to know your schools, get to know, PTA leadership, city leadership, movers and shakers, parents, everybody. And that can be very helpful. If you're going to do 2 or 3 days at a time, I would probably not recommend 5 candidates. I would probably recommend you go with 3 or 4 just because it's grueling. And it takes a lot of time out of y'all's schedule. That's another thing. You guys need to look at this timeline and basically clear late April, early May from your work calendars, because it will get very labor intensive once you get the finalists. But, if you're going to have less than 5, we would ask that you make that decision at the outset and let that be what we plan to bring you. I've had a couple of boards over the years when they got ready they got 5 names and then they wanted to screen it down to 3. At that point, all they know about the candidates is what's on paper. I can tell you, I worked for the Montgomery school system when we went through a superintendent search, and I can tell you there will be candidates who set the room on fire, and then there will be candidates who look great on paper, but just don't set the room on fire when you interview them. You don't know that when all you've got is the resume. We will have put the legwork in to know if they're a good fit and if there's more to them than what you see on paper. The other risk you might run, quite frankly, is that when you have the discussion about narrowing the list, it tends to turn into less of a, we need to interview this person, and this person, and more of a, well, I don't want to interview that person, or this person's not as strong as that person. You're dealing with people's professional reputations. When that starts to happen in a board meeting, your best candidates will drop like flies. I've seen it happen in multiple searches. It is hard to have that discussion in public without really spooking your candidates, because quite frankly, if I'm a finalist and I hear you trashing publicly one of the other finalists, first of all, I don't want to submit myself to that, and second, I begin to wonder, is that a board I'd really want to work for? And that's not the impression you want to leave. So if you're going to do less than 5, we'd ask that you tell us up front if at all possible.
Okay.
There's no magic number, though, other than what you just want.
When you present the candidate pool, it's just a pool, it's not prioritized.
Correct. You will receive it in alphabetical order. If you had questions for Dr. Behrens about why somebody landed on the list, she would answer them thoroughly and honestly. She will present the list to you in a public meeting. She will go over a thumbnail of their qualifications each and provide you with what we call the media sheet, which summarizes the job experience of each of the candidates that you can give to your public, post on your website. We will have, as I said, vetted them, but there will still be a role for the board in deciding, is this person the right fit for your team.
When you say vetting, will you guys do the reference searches as well?
We do reference checks. We check people who know them who were not references. As I said, we make sure that they've got the credentials they say they've got. We have a lot of conversation with them as well. we try to do a well-rounded search. Now, we do not do a criminal background check. We do not do a credit check. And I'm sure Mr. Sweeney can explain the legal reasons we don't do that. But we do vet their experience and skills.
Why wouldn't we do it, Mr. Sweeney?
I'm sorry.
Why would we not do a credit check and a criminal background check?
You can, but that's not appropriate for them, and you want to do that at the very last.
At the last meeting, after she has presented 3, 4, or 5 to us, then we do that process on that
That's
group of
correct.
people.
And if they're in state, they've already had that information vetted with the search fund.
And frankly, the boards that do that generally tend to do their interviews first, and then only do that level of screening on the ones they're serious about. Which, if you only interview 3, you may want to do it on all 3 of them just as a matter of course, but when it's 5, maybe not.
So that cost is not included in the 21, though?
It is not.
21.2.
Correct.
Dr. Behrens, how much experience has she had? How long has she been on your search committee?
Since the outset, in fact, she, Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Wright, and Mr. Jones all were part of building the search service with us. They were part of the designers of it. In terms of that list of searches that have been done, let's see, I know she did Athens, Limestone County, Madison County, Coleman, Gardendale.
She has a lot of experience.
She's done a number of searches, yes, sir.
Susan, where do these individuals live?
The searchers?
Yes.
Dr. Behrens still lives in the Shoals area. Dr. Jenkins still lives in Auburn. Hank still lives in Pike County, no longer in Troy City. And Dr. Wright lives in Montgomery, and Jan Harris lives in Huntsville.
We still would have access to your other selection members if we chose to call and contact?
Yes, and they will all be part of the screening team and the vetting team, but you need somebody who is sort of the lead recruiter and searcher and verifier, and that would be Dr. Behrens.
I would like to say thank you. Dr. Jenkins was an awful lot of help to us when Dr. Reese fell from heaven for us, but I appreciate the help. I just want to say that.
Thank you. He is my touchstone for what effective superintendents do and how they operate. He is amazing. All right, if there are no additional questions, I will just tell you also in your packet, you have a detailed summary, or that makes absolutely no sense. You have a detailed report on what the research firm will do for you. You also have some information about the national affiliation of superintendent searchers. If you have any additional questions, do not hesitate to call us. And I need somebody with skinny fingers. My thumb drive has fallen down in the one hole on this podium. Yeah, you got skinnier fingers than me. My apologies.
Chewing gum.
Thank you.
And
my
pencil.
pleasure.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sweeney, is it possible for the board to make a decision tonight? I have reasons, before you answer that. I called Mr. Sweeney a week or so ago and asked him if we had to bid this process. He said we did not. It's the board's responsibility to choose whomever. I am currently the only one on the board who has been through a superintendent search, and that was back in 2007. It was the majority of the board's wish at that time that we hire an outside firm. At that time, and I think Ms. Ante, back in 2007, about $28,000 plus is what we paid. Is that correct? Search. And basically, we ended up with 2 candidates. They brought 3 candidates to us, but one withdrew his name at the very end, so we were left with two candidates, one being an interim superintendent that we had at the time. As you know, Dr. Reese is with us till the end of June, is that correct? By state law. And so that was the reason for the urgency. I know AASB was very helpful. Earl has said this time and time again, as he was looking, talking, whatever, trying to locate an interim superintendent for Hoover City Schools, and they were extremely helpful with his process. AASB is our governing body, so to speak. I've been on this board for 10 years. I have attended a lot of conferences and have always been very impressed with Alabama Association of School Boards. Very impressed. The director, Sally, lives here in Birmingham, and I don't know, Susan, if we would even have access to her or not, but it does.
She lives in Hoover.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Her children graduated from this system, so she's got a vested interest.
Okay. But I guess my reasoning for, and then I talked to Mr. Sweeney very candidly about AASB, and he talked about the Gardendale search that he was most familiar with and was quite impressed with them. And I just feel strongly about getting this show on the road. Time, and this is a very strict schedule. It is an extremely strict schedule, but I would like very much to have the new superintendent in place by the end of May, and that would allow the new superintendent and our interim superintendent, Dr. Reese, to have 1 month, hopefully, of an overlap with the superintendent taking his or her position on July the 1st, 2015. So, having said that, one question I did have, Susan, do you, with New South research surveys, that's a chunk. I mean, there's no monetarily speaking. Do you feel that New South is necessary to the superintendent's search here in Hoover?
I think it's highly advisable. I will tell you, we've done a lot of searches where we did the surveying, but it's not scientifically valid. That is just not in our wheelhouse. I think with, quite frankly, all that this system has been through in this board in the last year, 18 months, that it would be really helpful to get good, valid, reliable data. I think it would be worth the investment. Jim has indicated that that you would be able to tweak the questions. So if you wanted to ask some climate questions or something. Oh, I'm sorry, Jim Jager, the president of New South, has indicated that, you know, if you wanted, I sent him what we traditionally ask, which gets at skills and experiences and traits, and also then the issues or challenges that are coming. If you wanted to add a few questions to that, I think you could. We just have to be careful that we don't add a huge number. He would like to keep it to a 5-minute survey, and that's reflected in his pricing. And people get irritated when the survey just goes on and on, whether it's online or on the phone.
Okay. Ms. Frazier, if I can remind you, New South is who we've used for parent surveys, that surveys in the past. Okay. So they're very familiar with surveying our population, and our stakeholders may even have some information that would be valuable to be reflected on whatever came out of the result of this. Pricing on this seems to be very fair, if not even a tad better than what we've gotten in the past for the type of surveys that we've done. I'm sure it's the extensive nature of the surveys we've done in the past, but they're very reputable from, and we have used them extensively.
So, do you know Mr. Jager?
I do.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm very optimistic. I wanted y'all to hear this firsthand. That's the reason we have not had any conversations about this. I told you that I was inviting Susan Salter to come, and I know you had another presentation you were supposed to do tonight, and I appreciate you making your schedule around so that you could come here.
I'm glad to do it.
I did ask her to bring a contract, and If you're not prepared to make a decision tonight, that's fine. We can have another call board meeting another day this week. I need to hear from you. Do you have any?
I echo what you said, Madam President, about AASB, everything I've been associated with them, and they're, from a business side that I look at things from, very professional, very, very helpful, very organized. Like I said, I cannot say enough about the interaction with Dr. Jenkins. Phone calls returned immediately, not just a text, not an email, a phone call, and he didn't have to do that. So my experience is
Ms. Frazier, have we heard from any other search firms? Have we been contacted saying, hey, we would love for you guys to consider us?
We have not, and that's another thing, I'm glad you brought that up. I have entertained every phone call, every email from Susan Salter, pretty much from the time that Mr. Craig, I guess the news got out that he was, Dr. Bice was recruiting him for the position in Montgomery. Alabama Association of School Boards has contacted me continuously. Very, very interested in the position, in doing this search. And I guess from this standpoint, and I've been in Hoover for over 30-something years, nobody probably knows more about us. I can't think of another search firm that would know more about us than AASB. And it has been a very trying, as I'm sure everybody in the audience could agree. The last 18 months, couple of years, has been a difficult time. And not necessarily, when I say difficult, changing. Lots of changes going on in Hoover. And I think if I remember correctly, read in the newspaper, that was one of the things that Dr. Bice was most impressed with Mr. Craig is the controversy that we've been through. Mr. Craig handled himself in a very professional manner, and he liked the way that he's handled some of the growing changes that we find ourselves in Hoover. I just feel like that no one knows us better than AASB.
Would you indulge a comment in response to the question
Sure,
you
Mr.
posed
Sweeney.
early on?
Help me.
When you and I talked, it was my recommendation that you bring AASB here for information purposes only. It would not be appropriate in my judgment for us to put AASB on the agenda as an action item when the board has not heard their presentation or anyone else's presentation. It's not an action item on the agenda tonight. And because it's not, and because of the discussion that we had, my suggestion would be that you not act tonight as an action item. But given the time sensitivity and because of the drift of the dialogue you just had with your board members, if the board is inclined to pass a declaration of intent tonight with the understanding that there is no formal contract with AASB until such a contract is brought back for the board to approve at the earliest possible meeting, that declaration of intent would give AASB the opportunity to move forward on this tight agenda that they have, that they've set forth, but in my judgment, enable the board to have the benefit of a contract so that they know exactly what they're approving with a document presented to them.
Can I ask a question? And Susan, I guess you may have to answer this. Did you do the Gardendale search?
Yes.
Okay. Did Gardendale, when you made a presentation to them, or someone in your firm made a presentation, how long was it until Gardendale accepted the contract?
Formally voted. Donald, I'm thinking it was at least a week, maybe a couple of weeks, but they had at that point, they had no students, so they had longer to search. The 180-day clock was not running for them, for one thing.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking it took them a week, maybe two. Does that sound right, Donald?
That's correct.
Okay.
Dr. Reese, can I ask your input on this? I know that that Enterprise used N&P Educational when you resigned. Did you have any input with them, or any say-so on them, or any feelings one way or the other toward them?
The board did not consult with me, and they handled everything. I didn't want to get or to impose my views on them, and they handled everything. So I did not participate in that.
Mr. Presley, N&P no longer does searches. All those gentlemen have retired.
Well, I definitely echo Ms. Frazier and Mr. Kelly's response about AASB. They have always been reliable. Anything we have done, from training to anything else, so I've been truly impressed. So there's no doubt in my mind that they exceed expectations in this process.
Okay, as Mr. Griffin, you have anything to say?
It's just a question of protocol on this contract approval. We've got January the 19th is the first really the kickoff date for you guys to really get in gear. So you've got a wee bit of time to look at the contract proposal. And all. I don't think there's anybody up here questions the credibility of the ASB based on the interactions we've had with it through the years. And you're saying it shouldn't be an action item, so again, we've got another week or so. We're gonna be able to deal with that. We just might have to reconvene for quick approval or not.
Well, as board president, can I recommend that we schedule a called meeting? And Mr. Presley, if there's any other firm, and I say this to any of you, if there's any other firm that you would wish for us to consider, please feel free. I have spent a lot of time with Susan. Again, time is of the essence. I do not want us to feel like we are backed in a corner. And, we have basically until the end of June. So
Let me make sure I heard you correctly. We've not been contacted by any other search firm.
as board president, I have not. Have any of you?
No.
Okay. But if there's someone that you wish to contact, Susan has mentioned a couple tonight. If you want to, Hazard Young and Tias, who we used back in 2007, if you'd like to contact them, please feel free to do so. I'm one person. As board president, I'm very, very impressed with AASB for lots of different reasons, and I hope I made the point tonight.
Well, to move the ball forward, let me do this. I'll make a recommendation that the board proceed with, what's
Declaration of intent.
And the declaration of intent to hear any other proposals, any other search firm wants to provide us, and to review the contract for approval on or before January 19th, which is the start date that she's proposed.
Can we do that, Mr. Swing?
We can.
Okay.
That way we have time to look at the contract, we have time to hear from anybody else, search firm wise who wants to be involved in the process, and we can meet when we have some kind of consensus of opinions for a date and take a vote on that point.
Okay.
Since we are establishing the actual date, deadline of receiving request for proposals, do we want to schedule an actual date when we will actually have a meeting to vote? Because we know we can go ahead and kill two birds with one stone.
We probably need to do that because today's the 12th, January 19th, is that next Monday?
Yes, ma'am. And let
It's
me
a
say,
holiday.
we can push that back a week if the board needs that time. We just don't need to lose a whole lot more time than that.
Okay.
Because it will take a little bit of time once the board has approved this, back and forth on survey questions to get the survey in the field.
Okay.
I just want to make this statement right here. Regardless of who performs the service, because a process is a process. So, I know we may have another week to may use, but if someone is interested, they'll contact us right away. And we can get out, I don't wanna delay a measure, because, again, I'm not saying I'll make a vote tonight, but I'm extremely impressed, with, ASB, and I understand the process, it's thinking we can actually do it. They understand our needs, and they have dealt with our needs before. And get back with Earl was saying that only fair to kind of get as much information for due diligence purposes, before we just make a decision.
Mr. Sweeney, have you seen the contract?
Yeah, but
Have you seen, Ms. Frazier asked, have you seen the contract?
No, he has
So
not.
at least you need
I
to.
did Gardendale's, and so I would assume that it is similar to that, but I have not seen any contract, as outlined tonight.
I'm wrong this time.
My thought is Mr. Cooper has indicated that the board is seriously considering AASB, but reserves the right to keep the process open if anyone else contacts you. But my recommendation, given the timeline, is that you set this matter down for a final determination, at which time anybody else that's interested should come and make a presentation. And at the end of that, the board makes a decision.
Well, we obviously have, how many newspapers in the audience tonight? 1, 2, 3, 4, how many? 5 or 6? So you're welcome to put it in your article if you'd like to.
The 19th is a holiday,
Yes, that's what Dr. Reese
so
and Ms. Watt just informed me. So the 19th is a holiday.
you know, we see that.
20th.
Friday. You want to tell them?
All media outlets. I'm not sure who all's here tonight, but you're welcome to put it in your report, okay? Yes,
So,
ma'am.
To be clear, did you declare intent or not?
We haven't yet, we're in the process.
Okay.
We've just discovered that January the 19th is a holiday.
The way
So-
I'm distilling what Mr. Cooper said is that you've made a declaration of intent to make a decision at whenever you set this matter down, that AASB will be seriously considered, but that you leave the process open for anyone else that wants to make a presentation that night, with the understanding that the board will try to make a decision that night.
You would like to establish a date now? The 20th, 21st?
I will be out of town, I will be lose.
What about the 16th? What about Friday?
What about Friday?
I'd rather not do it Friday night, but that's right.
Okay.
Can we do Friday
When
morning?
did you retire?
Yeah.
While we go out of town.
Friday?
Friday morning?
Friday morning.
Friday morning.
That date is January the 16th. What time?
7:30?
7:30 here at Central Office.
Clear cut zone, huh?
I think it's true.
Okay, Mr. Cooper, can you
It was 3 days.
please state the recommendation one more time? Ms. White, you'll get this please, and then we'll take a vote.
Did you capture Donald's comment on Facebook?
Will that suffice,
What is our
Mr. Sweeney?
That Mr. Cooper suggested that the board set down for final determination the decision whom to use for the superintendent's search, with the understanding that AASB will be a serious candidate, but leaving the process open for anyone else that wants to make a presentation at that meeting on January 16th at 7:30 in the beginning, 7:30 in the morning.
Do I have a motion to do so?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank
And
you.
my thought would be that if anybody wants to be considered, including AASB, on January 16th at 7:30, that they have a formal contract presented to you, Ms. Fraser, so that the board will be in a position to make a final determination.
Thank you.
Madam President, would you mind if I ask if the public has any questions they would like us to consider? Employees, public?
Congressman John Wiley, do you have any comments?
Elected officials too.
And you're just in the nick of time.
It's been here a while.
Mr. Singer?
So are you going to go for 3, 4, or 5 candidates?
I think that we'll have to talk about that. As I mentioned before, in 2007, the board was adamant about an outside state firm. The board was adamant about 3 candidates, and we ended up with 2 candidates. So I'm hearing what you're saying, Susan.
So we want to have time to think about it from this point until Friday and then come back.
Absolutely.
Feedback,
We'll make a decision
we
tonight.
decide then.
Anybody else in the audience? Yes, sir.
Are you going to be contacting these other firms?
No.
If someone contacts,
Are you going? I recommend that you contact the other firms, call them, and make sure that they know. Of course, it'll be in the media, but make sure that they are aware of it. I think that would be wise.
I will not be contacting these other firms, but if they contact me, just as I have with WSB, I will respond back.
Okay, I would recommend that you call and contact them.
How many firms are you talking about, sir?
There are 4, you mentioned 4. I would contact all 4. If they're not interested, then they'll just say they're not interested, and that's the end of it.
Dr. Reese and I will make the appropriate contacts with the people that have been mentioned tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience? If not, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Susan Salton.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any public participation tonight? Mr. Sanger?
Very short item. The next regular scheduled board meeting is February 2nd. Okay. Now, for several years, there was no conflict between when the Board of Education was meeting and when the City Council was meeting. Okay. But lately, I've noticed that there is both of them. We have both of them occurring on the same night. I would ask consideration for changing to another date so that interested citizens can attend both meetings.
That is not a problem.
Thank you.
Marla, you didn't notice it's Groundhog Day too.
Is everyone open to changing whatever conflict dates that we have with the council?
I need to note that there be some things under Students First Act that we'll need to double check on our timelines in regards to those dates.
Okay.
For some personnel actions pending.
For John Lyda, maybe the council could change their dates.
I knew that was gonna come out. I didn't come off
Is it a possibility?
authorization to change our meeting.
Do I need to talk to,
Mr. Wright said the agenda.
okay, I'll contact him. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Tricia Crane. I'm a lifelong resident of Hoover. I'm wearing my Hoover resident hat tonight. Last year when we had the horrible ice storm, it came at a time when Advance Ed was here to do their recommendation, their accreditation. We never had the public meeting where the public got to hear the recommendations of Advance Ed for accreditations. And I recently obtained what's available, which is a copy of the report that Advance Ed gave to the school system. I obtained that through an open records request. And there were a couple of things in there. What I know about Advanced Ed accreditation is that they give you a couple of things to work on, and then you're supposed to submit reports to them at some point. None of that has ever really been talked about, and what's been in the report, what the direction was in the report. And the 2 things that were indicated as improvement priorities are things that caught my eye because they are things that I've paid attention to over the years. The first was to develop a component for the district's professional development plan that ensures the acquisition of adequate data analysis skills to enable teachers at all levels to provide differentiated instructional strategies to meet the needs of all the learners. Because they said in their observations, they noted that at the elementary level, there was a lot of differentiated instruction. At the middle school, there was a little, but at the high school, there was none. And so that was one of their improvement priorities. The second one was to, and I think it relates to the superintendent search here, expand the focus of the strategic plan to be more inclusive of stakeholder populations represented in the school system, with a greater depth of awareness of the plan as part of the purpose and direction for the next 5 years in order to reach a maximum number of stakeholders. They said that the evidence from the interviews and surveys suggests that the stakeholder involvement around the strategic plan was limited in recruiting a representative group of stakeholders. They talk about our significant demographic shift in population in the last 5 years, which warranted a more inclusive approach to bring a more representative group of stakeholders for input into the purpose and direction of discussion. I know I've had discussions with Mr. Murphy, I've had some discussions with Mr. Cooper in the last 10 years about this, and with Mr. Kelly. And so I call that to your attention because, you know, it's one of those things that just sort of disappeared. You know, the accreditation discussion came and then we heard nothing else about it. And that particularly, I think, relates to what we're about to go through. I mean, I like the idea, I'm sorry Susan's gone, she did an excellent presentation. I love the idea of the statistically significant surveys. I wonder where they got that from. That was a good suggestion. But, so, you know, my first question, I guess, around that is, would you be willing to, at some point, update us all on this accreditation process, which included where we stand with this improvement, these two things that were identified for priority improvement, and what is being done, you know, to address those things. Because we don't even know the time frame. Typically, they say it's a year. You know, you have to get back to us in a year. These are your priority things, and get back to us in a year. So that's my request to you tonight. As a resident of Hoover, I'd love to know where that stands. And the second thing I'd love to know, but I'm kind of wearing both hats, so I'll be quiet after I ask the question. The other hat being that I write, Dr. Reese, this is our first introduction, I write a news for a news organization called the Alabama School Connection that really looks at the whole state K-12 education. But I'd love to know if Mr. Sweeney, I understand there was supposed to be a meeting on January the 9th between the attorneys, the Department of Justice, the NAACP, LDF, or y'all were supposed to discuss and exchange data or something along those lines. I didn't know, I haven't had a chance to ask any of the board members what happened.
There was not a scheduled meeting on January 9th. There was a commitment to exchange information. Whit Colvin, who represents Jefferson County, and I are in the process of coordinating a format to present to all of the parties for consideration on what data and how that data will be presented to Judge Hackala at the end of the month. So we did not have a meeting on January 9th, but Whit Colvin for Jefferson County and I are in the process of trying to refine how that information will be presented to the parties.
Trish. Yes, ma'am?
I will be short.
Thank you.
I understand there's a ball in here.
Alabama's not playing, so I'm not sure. One of my daughters that went to Auburn.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
For the giving. I'm Dana Clement with the Alabama Education Association. And I wanted to spend just a few moments talking about a concern that I've brought to the board a couple of times over the last 18 months. I've provided you with some information. I hope it will be helpful as I go through my comments. Let me say they were more lengthy a few minutes ago, but I plan to be concise. And so with that, I want to just let you know that anytime after this meeting, by phone, email, or anything, I'll be happy to discuss any specifics or any follow-up that you might have. But about 18 months ago, you all made the decision to contract out custodial services, and I believe the number is for 7 elementary schools within the system. And at that time, on that evening, I gave you information, and I thought it very accurately
shared research-based and information that would be concerns that you may want to consider. Not that all of those things would come to fruition, but they've happened in and around this state and throughout the country when it comes to contracting out of services with education and other government entities. Over the past 18 months, I have received numerous, too many to count, phone calls, emails, and face-to-face comments and concerns about the quality of services that those schools who are contracted out have been receiving. I met numerous times and over the past time one-on-one to discuss specifics of those, and I go back to what I said in the last time I was standing here about this issue, is that these are elementary schools. And so you'll hear me say many times, I've heard, someone called me, someone emailed me, and oftentimes that ends with, but please don't use my name. Because these are elementary teachers. And you know what? They're kind and they're loving and they're not confrontational and they're not interested in making trouble for themselves or for their administration or for Hoover City Schools. But they're really, really frustrated at this point over the cleanliness of their buildings, the cleanliness of their rooms. They have health concerns. They hear from parents. They're constantly spending their own money to buy supplies to clean their little part of the world. But then they go out into the hallways, into the more common areas, and they're faced with some of the things that I think that you can see there. The quality of the pictures, that I think that you can make out, that there is dust, dirt, grime buildup, and you may go walk today and you may go find clean buildings, just came off of a holiday, and some people would say, well, we use that time at Christmas to do a deep clean. And I understand that there are times that you do deep cleans, holidays, summer, but schools should never, ever get to the point of some of these pictures and some of the things that you see. That's a sampling. There's more where those came from. And so I've been out, I've seen this with my own eyes after people contacted me. I wanted to see what they were talking about. People did send me pictures, but I did go look for myself to see. And don't take my word for it. You know, talk to the people that are being directly impacted by the custodial services that are being offered. Administrators, teachers, other people that are in and out of those buildings, and I think that you will see that there is widespread concern for the cleanliness of the building, the maintenance of the building, because some of these pictures are taken in schools that are not very old. In terms of the longevity of a school building, they're kind of new buildings, but they don't look it. And every year that they're allowed to go down, it can't be recovered in the long run, and so that building is just lost in terms of use of years. But the main thing I think that this is it puts children in a bad position. It puts them in jeopardy from a health standpoint. It puts your employees in a bad position, and it's terrible for morale because they show up and they're there to give their very best, and they're not working in a condition that is what you would expect for Hoover City School or for any school that is servicing children.
Dana, let me just say this about that. Outside of the drama, you're the only focal point for teachers because you are a paid AEA rep.
Yes, sir.
Who else are they going to call? I would say it's just like a parent that's got a problem. The parent with a problem doesn't contact this guy right off the bat. The parent with a problem goes to, number one, the teacher. Number two, the principal. But if I'm the principal, I'm not going to meet with the parent without the teacher. And, you know, and it's an operational issue. And I'm glad you're checking buildings, and I don't know if you checked buildings before we went to custodial help or not. But this is clearly, you know, it's not a fair and balanced approach to this whole thing.
You know, and to respond to you, my remarks have been thought about for the past 2 weeks. Yeah. And I did not do a PowerPoint. I did not use any media because I did not want to shock value. I knew that there would be parents here, I knew there would be media here, and that's not what I was wanting to draw. But I've met behind closed doors, and I've heard from administrators, I've heard from teachers, I've heard from people who are in this building, who work every day, who come into contact, and they hear those things. But people do not, in education, my experience has been that they will pick up a broom and they will do something rather than complain about it.
But you're missing the point.
I don't know that I'm missing the point.
Because before we had custodial help to manage costs, if you will, nobody's gonna call you.
Oh, sure.
I mean,
Sure they do.
you weren't out there with a camera looking in the corner to see how much dirt's in there. I'm just saying, you know, this is, I mean, appreciate the information. You know, I don't appreciate the drama, but what I don't appreciate either is the fact that whoever's got the problem doesn't go up the chain of command and use appropriate protocol. And you're not in the chain of command, you know, and it's just an end around, is what I'm thinking.
Let me ask you a question then. Now when we first approved the contract, I think it was maybe a 2-year period, up for a reevaluation, I think came before the board. How was information given to central office, one question I have, from the principals and assistant principals? Or is it feedback going back and forth between the two?
It's feedback. GCA conducts a survey of the principals in which they rate their performance, and they can vet if questions and data points, and they have meetings with the management of GCA periodically. You know, there is a communication system and a process flow there that exists to address any issues that the school has and work with the schools around those issues. And as of right now, we did get off to a very rough start with the group for many reasons. Some of our words our own, some of them were theirs. They have put in additional managerial staff in the last since almost a year, about 10 months, that has brought significant improvement to the quality and communication feature that we're seeing there. They have corrected a lot of things. We're hearing they're beginning to hire stronger staff as they expand into this area as an area of service, because they were a new employer when they first began. So while we share concerns about different situations within the schools, we do think we're on a path to help to get those addressed and corrected. But some of these issues we have in our own schools where we have our own custodians. That's part of the process that we want to go through to try to be more structured in our way that we're addressing the needs of our students. Certainly we can entertain anything that the board would like to around that situation, and go in whatever direction you guys choose.
The board only entertains what the superintendent recommended. That's the whole problem I've got here. It's not a board.
Well, Mr. Cooper, for your information, I contacted the superintendent this morning, and we spoke by phone before I came here to speak, because as I shared with him, I met with Mr. Craig many times over the last 18 months, and my intention was to meet with Dr. Reese this last week, but because of illness and being out of town, and because of the holiday, I was unable to do that. But because I am expected to be a voice for when people contact me, that I don't have a vested interest, so to speak. Some people would say, well, yes, you do. But at this point, there's no custodians who are contacting me who actually are AEA members. The people who are contacting me are teachers, support staff, and administrators. And I am in the buildings, I'm in this building, and whether or not you think that I have a voice and whether I'm being dramatic or not, people will confide in me and tell me things that they are not comfortable to go to an administrator and say, and especially are not going to stand at this podium and seem like they are being negative and critical of their school, their administrator, and their system. Because there are many, many good employees who will do anything to put a good face on whatever is going on, and that's what makes them super good educators.
I get that, but what I don't get is the fact that the problem with cleanliness, the problem with custodial help, be it outside entities or hired employees within the school district, are one and the same. You know, no school system plays a custodian a reasonable amount of money.
Oh, but
It's hard to
I
find
dare
it.
to, disagree with you on that.
Well,
Because those are your employees. If they are a Hoover employee, then you have administrative responsibility and, over them. And then you can discipline them, you can terminate them, you can deal with them on a daily basis for what they're not doing. The way that this system is set up to work, with one person being in charge of a school with 500 or 700 people, and then 3 or 4 showing up at night when there's no supervisor there, and you can say there's a supervisor there, they may come and go, but there's not a great deal of supervision. And what I'm hearing from the people in the building is it's just not happening. And so there are emails that have floated around, and so I just challenge you as decision makers to look for that information, to ask for that information. It's out there, but do not be surprised when people do not want to put their name to things. But there is information out there, and it's out there for you to find if you truly want to know about the quality of the custodial services that you are paying for, and in my opinion, not receiving.
Dr. Reese, I know you've got a principal meeting tomorrow. Will you please flip that out there and see what you can cover?
Mr. Cooper? Mr. Cooper and Madam President, we're one of the schools that are on that have the custodial service. We do have a principal meeting tomorrow, and clearly this is an operational issue. It is already on the agenda for tomorrow. The principals that are involved have talked about it, and we asked Mr. Dotson to put it on the principal meeting agenda, so it's already on the principal meeting agenda tomorrow.
Great, thank you so much.
Ms. Dormer? Yes, sir.
Just one quick comment, the last comment on that. So, we had a rocky road initially, and we're still working through some issues too as well.
They have put stronger management in place to cover our schools. What we're hearing is they're full of candidates to hire, is improving. Are we all the way to bright? No. But, I don't know the dates of when those pictures were taken, whether they were taken last week or last year. So that makes it a little bit challenging to know what is being faced with. But, I think, we've seen some improvements in the schools.
Well, it doesn't matter whenever take it. I mean, the thing is, we need to get the bottom of it and get it right, whatever riser is.
That's right. That's right. Is that something that, now, it seems like it was a great idea, Carol Barber suggested. And again, I'm want to get into operational things. Are other schools doing similar things where they, it's a principal meeting, or not just in school? Okay, so that's a principal meeting. Good job. I'm sorry.
1 second, sir. Did you have something else to say, Dana?
Was there a question about the date of the photos?
I don't think so.
Okay, I thought someone asked about when the photos were taken.
No.
said it could have been last year.
Those photos were taken in the month of December,
Okay.
so right before the holiday.
Yes, sir.
My name's Jody Patterson. I'm a lifetime resident, 55 years in Hoover. Dear school board member, thank you for serving our city. Thank you for what you do. I'm here this evening to provide you with some facts and some truth and present some information and concerns. You set rules. You establish policy. My understanding is that you can also enforce these rules and that policy. But what if there are no rules? No guidelines to follow? No policy? It's always been done this way. Everybody does it. That's the only way to do it. Maybe, just maybe, there's a better way. On December 30th, I had my 55th birthday. My younger sister gave me a wonderful handmade present. Life's little instruction calendar. There's 6 unique verses. As I read them all on my special day, the third instruction really got my attention. It reads, always question and demand answers from whomever is taking your money. Where the H is it going? You, as policymakers, can absolutely help parents and students obtain better prices from salesmen, graduation supply companies, and you as a policymaker can help all Hoover residents know where the H, the money goes. At my age, and I told Ms. Frazier this when I met with her back in September, I don't have the energy to march, to protest, yell at meetings, organize rallies or boycotts like me and my late brother did in the 90s. But I'm tired of getting ripped off. I'm here to give you a little information. Many have questioned high prices, low quality, and sketchy practices. The word sketchy is from a former board member I talked with last week. Sketchy practices from graduation supply companies for the past 30 to 40 years. From June 13th, 1982 until June 1st, 1987, my life was consumed by my late boss and the graduation supply company I worked for.
Excuse me, Mr. Patterson.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Frazier, that suggests that Mr. Patterson is going to review a matter that is formally before the Alabama Ethics Commission. And because that is a formal complaint that he has filed, I see no utility whatsoever in having Mr. Patterson review that complaint, which is in a quasi-judicial process right now. I think that's unfair to this board. I think it's unfair to Don Hewlin, and I think it's inappropriate. And I would, as board attorney, I would respectfully suggest that Mr. Patterson not be allowed to go forward with this exchange of information that is now before the Alabama Ethics Commission.
Mr. Patterson,
I'm not referencing anything in the complaint. I'm telling you my thoughts and my truthful wishes. I'm not referencing to the board attorney. I'm not referencing anything in my complaint, sir.
My suggestion would be Mr. Patterson provide us with any facts that he wants to. Let us investigate those facts and respond appropriately. But I think that this is an approach which has the implication of defaming the good name and character of a person who is overwhelmingly esteemed in this educational community. It's not a format that gives him the opportunity to respond, and I think this is an inappropriate discussion.
May I comment, please? Mr. Sweeney, I have not mentioned anybody's name. I have not mentioned a company name. I've mentioned some concerns that I have. I've not mentioned anyone's name or any company name.
The implication is that there is some wrongdoing that's ongoing. If there's any factual basis for that, if those can be presented to Dr. Reese, we'll investigate the matters and take appropriate action. But this is not the forum for him to make that kind of allegation that could impugn the good name and character of people that are highly esteemed here and do not have the opportunity in this forum to respond.
I agree, and I understand exactly what you're talking about without
Yes,
you
sir.
mentioning it, so I appreciate this, but I agree
Yes, sir.
with Mr. Sweeney. I appreciate you coming.
Not a problem at all.
Well, let me
I'd like
say
to give
this.
you a packet.
I'm slightly disagreeing with him, imagine that. I don't appreciate it at all. In fact, when I read your letter that was presented to the board prior to Christmas, I guess it was, I'll be honest with you, first thing I did is Google up defamation, and you've got all 4 criteria as far as I'm concerned. So I'm saying, based upon your letter, what you disclosed as being innuendo and or truth, I had a hard time with it.
What about your opinion? I'm telling the truth.
That's exactly
I'm
right.
stating exactly what I know and believe.
As somebody who's been in the industry.
Yes, sir.
2 decades ago.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
Thank you. I'd like to give you all something.
Ms. Frazier, let me just make one further thought that when anyone files a complaint with the Ethics Commission, the outcome of that is fact-driven, fact-determined, and the commission is going to make that determination. On behalf of the board, I have asked the commission to expedite this matter because of the importance to the school system and to everyone involved. So I'm hoping that the commission will do that. This is not something that we're running away from. It's something that we want to be handled with integrity and in fairness to everybody involved.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you for your
Mr.
time.
Patterson. Any other public
Thank you very much.
participation tonight? I apologize for the long meeting. At this time, if there's no other public participation, Mr. Sweeney has provided the board with a certificate of compliance in order for us to be in an executive session. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
As you're discussing that, I wondered if we could meet expeditiously. Mr. Beavers and I are both a little bit under the weather. If we could go right into the meeting.
Do you want to reschedule?
I want the executive session, but I'd like for us, if we could go right into it.
Absolutely. Do I have a second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Now convene into executive session, and the time is 7:20.
I expect it to be 30 to 45 minutes, and no decision will be made.